if our kids are having that gluten donut or whatever the treats are, the likelihood of them having some residual symptoms like stomach aches or behavioral issues is probably going to happen. And I think if you just connect it and have a conversation with them about how that food is making their body feel, really tie it to that and how when we eat better, we feel better. It's one of those things that it can be hard and stressful when it happens, but we need to keep arming our kids with the knowledge that when we eat better, we feel better. And there's a reason why we feel this way when we eat these certain foods.
Welcome to the Soaring Child podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm Dana Kay, your host. Hello, parents. This is Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child podcast. Let's be real. Okay, if you're raising a child with ADHD and then trying to stick to a gluten and dairy-free diet, the holidays can feel like a total minefield. A few years ago, we learned really the hard way. We showed up to this holiday party and I was thinking to myself, yeah, we totally figured it all out. And we just went without planning. But when we got there, we looked around and the only safe option were some gluten-free crackers and a sad little salad. And let me tell you, the kids were definitely not happy. And between you and me, neither was my husband. And before long, we were heading home. We had two very, very hungry and cranky kids, and it was a really rough night, but it really taught me a super important lesson. If you want to enjoy the holidays without a meltdown, preparation is absolutely everything. And that's why I'm so excited to have Andrea Daigle back with us today. Andrea, for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time on the Soaring Child podcast, is one of our expert coaches at the ADHD Thrive Institute. She's a board certified holistic health practitioner and FDNP. She has been an amazing guide to countless families, helping them to manage ADHD naturally. And she's also a regular on this podcast. And I know her advice will actually, leave you feeling a little bit more prepared, a lot more supported, and really ready to enjoy the holiday without stress. Now, today we'll dive into practical tips for managing gluten and dairy-free diets at those holiday gatherings. We're going to also discuss how to stay positive during the festive season and what to do if something sneaks into your child's diet or onto their plate. So let's get started. Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
Hi, Donna. Happy to be here.
Are you getting prepared for the holidays?
We are, slowly but surely. They just creep up on you every year.
They do. I can't believe that they are like right around the corner. I mean, were we just celebrating New Year's, not that long ago?
We were, and the time has been flying. And I feel like the older my children get, the faster the time goes by.
You are so right there. I can't believe it. Like my son, he's literally in December turning 15 and, he's towering over me. I can't believe it. Now I remember back and I'm sure you can totally relate to this. Holiday gatherings can be really overwhelming for families, especially those managing, food intolerances and food allergies. What are your top tips for parents navigating these events where gluten and dairy might be like lathered on every single table?
Yeah, it can be really tough and overwhelming in the beginning, especially if you're just now starting to navigate a gluten dairy-free diet. So I think it's best to have a family discussion or just a quick meeting with your entire family before you go to the party and just get their input. What kind of foods do they want to have at the party? And work together and really create a good list of things that you can bring. And it can be snacks, appetizers, other dishes. And another thing you want to do is get them involved in the kitchen to help you prepare these dishes. Take them to the store with you, get them shopping and reading those labels. really including them in that process is going to get them excited about what they're eating, but also they're going to have the opportunity to share their favorite things or even new dishes with people at the party. So, I think it's best to really include them and get them involved and just to kind of help create that buy-in with them as well.
That's 100% right. What if they make it themselves, if they buy it themselves, they're more likely to enjoy it and follow through and eat it and be excited about sharing it.
Yes. And the best part about it too, like I can think of many parties we've been to where so many people there are asking my kids, what are you eating? Tell me about that. And it just provokes good conversation with the kids and it makes them feel good and just boosts their confidence a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that we definitely want to do with our ADHD kiddos as well. Wasn't it something like kids with ADHD receive 20,000 more negative messages over their kid years compared to their neurotypical peers? So in any way that we can boost their confidence is definitely a positive.
Absolutely. And just sparking those conversations with other people, it gives them the opportunity to really be proud of this change.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So what other tips do you have?
Yeah, I think also too is just when you get them involved, you want to make those dishes fun. You really want to bring about things that are going to be at a party, like a charcuterie board. So, that is something that you go to a party and it's there, but guess what? There's usually dairy and sometimes gluten, bread, crackers. I think having a variation of a charcuterie board that is something different for kids, like a French fry board where you bring different types of French fries and sauces, or even a s'mores board where you make it dessert based, or even like a breakfast board where you have different breakfast things like pancakes and waffles and just different breakfast goodies to share as well. Just get creative about it.
Yeah.
And I think that will really spark that.
I love that board idea. I mean, we all think of charcuterie boards, don't we? But we don't think of breakfast boards. We don't think of dessert boards. That's brilliant. I'm actually going to take that tip myself. So thank you very much. This has been super helpful. We can end this podcast right now. No, joking for sure. Look, I think planning ahead can definitely make all the difference. What do you think are some of those, essential steps that listeners or parents can take to really create that, that stress-free, I suppose, gluten and dairy-free holiday meal?
Yeah, the first thing we really want to do is communicate openly with the host because sometimes, if you're going to a friend's house or a parent's house, they may not even know that you have dietary issues. And so you want to have those conversations, let them know that you're following a gluten dairy-free diet. Number one, just so that they don't feel a certain way if you're not eating the food, but also you can suggest bringing some foods to share at the gathering as well and talk about some menu options that you might be able to share with everybody. And I think, if you're able to focus on things like, especially with Thanksgiving coming up, whole foods, things like turkey, mashed potatoes, roasted veggies, even fresh salads. Everybody loves a fresh salad, whether that's, a traditional salad or even a fruit salad. Those types of things can be, something that everybody enjoys at a party.
You're so right there. And I think that we get so caught up in, bringing something gluten and dairy free that we actually forget that a lot of dishes firstly are naturally dairy and gluten free, like that turkey, or can be made gluten and dairy free. So like mashed potatoes, okay, yeah, there might be some butter in it, but you could use ghee or you could use a non-dairy butter and it will just taste as good or even better. And so I think that especially when starting out, I know that this was the case for me back in the day. I just thought, oh, we can't eat any of the things that we used to eat when we went to Christmas to our family's house. But pretty much every single thing that was on that menu could be made gluten and dairy free.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, the biggest thing was stuffing because my family is really big on having different varieties of stuffing. We have oyster dressing and traditional dressing. And so that was kind of one thing we were missing. And then it was like, wait a minute, there are so many good recipes out there that you can find with gluten-free options for stuffing and just everything, just even vegetables, casserole dishes, all of these things can be made gluten and dairy free. And they are delicious. So it's just kind of getting outside of your norm a little bit because we're just so used to maybe what the norm is. Take a risk and try something new. And chances are you'll probably really enjoy it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And even if you're not ready to try something completely new, take the dish that you've got, go into Google. Let's just say, yeah, mashed potato. That's a good example. Dairy-free mashed potato. Google it. And the loads of recipes that are going to come up, so just as you mentioned, stuffing. Stuffing's, not a massive thing in Australia. We do have stuffing, but we don't have different variety of stuffing. So I'm very interested to learn a little bit more about that. But, type in gluten dairy free turkey stuffing. And you would be surprised at the mountains of things. But even if you've got a recipe for stuffing, you can look at that recipe and you can go, how can I make this gluten-free? Okay, it's got bread. Let's just use gluten-free bread instead. It's got butter. Let's use vegan butter instead. And so just sometimes the smallest swap can actually make your favorite recipe gluten and dairy free. But because it's so overwhelming, and I totally understand that, don't get me wrong, like I was the mum that took out everything on day one, and there were multiple times I was lying on the floor in my bedroom having a panic attack. So we're teaching you all the things not to do, all the things that I do not do. And I think it's, it doesn't have to be as hard. So like, parents are probably thinking, oh, this is, a massive undertaking, or they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. How can they stay positive and sort of motivated while sticking to this gluten and dairy-free diet during this time?
Yeah, and that is a really good question because we can get into this mindset of this is so hard or everybody else is eating something different. We have to remember why we're here and why we're doing this. That is the most important thing. Whether you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for your kids, everybody feels better when they eat better. So just always keep that in the back of your mind.
Preach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's with the holidays coming up. If this is something new to you, it can feel overwhelming because it's all we're thinking of is what our old norm was and what's it going to be like. But you know what? It's time to break the cycle, create a new norm, and take those baby steps and just plan. The planning is really critical. Assume there will be plenty of snacks and assume those treats and drinks are going to be floating around. There are going to be those impromptu get-togethers that are going to come about. And if you're prepared at home for those times, then it won't be so overwhelming. And a trick that I always do, I have a local bakery that makes some vegan gluten-free donuts and treats and cupcakes and cookies. I just have a bunch of those in my freezer. That way, if we do get invited to an impromptu party, it's like I'll bring those for my kids and for myself. So that way everybody gets to enjoy a dessert. And I always bring extra so that other people can try it too, because they're always very curious. But if you keep those things in your freezer or you just always have a plan, it does make things a lot easier when you're heading out to the party or if something comes up unexpected.
Yeah, you're so right there. We've always got gluten dairy-free cupcakes in our freezer. We've always got gluten dairy-free chicken nuggets. Not that we eat it a lot, but when we've got those times where you just can't deal with it or it comes up really last minute, having better for you fries in the freezer, just being prepared is super critical and extra critical during this holiday season. So look, we've discussed, okay, let's just do a bit of a recap. We want to call ahead. So what are the steps that families listening today really should follow when preparing for those holidays?
Yep. So the first thing you want to do is meet as a family. Talk about what are some of the foods, the dishes that you want to have. Create a plan together as a family for just to be prepared, talk about recipe ideas and that type of thing. And the second thing you want to do is communicate with the host, because if you are either eating at the home and a lot of times they want to offer and provide something that's safe foods for you and your family. So if they're open to doing that, you can have a conversation around that or share with the host that you are going to be bringing something and add that to the menu to share with others. And the third thing, we do want to make sure that we are in a positive mindset and staying motivated, because it can be tough to get in that lull when you feel like this is just another thing. And we don't want it to be another thing. We want it to become the norm where everything just starts to come natural.
Yeah, for sure. And both Andrea and I have been on this journey for years, and we can tell you that we don't even think about it anymore because it is our norm. At first it can seem really hard, but when you do make those small little baby steps, you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, this is normal now, and this is our norm. And then you think about, oh gosh, could you imagine if I had to make that potato dish with all that cheese and all that thing? And that seems overwhelming. So I just want to discuss with you, I want to get some ideas from you, for parents that are really wanting to sort of try something new. What are some of those simple and crowd-pleasing favorites that you can recommend?
Yeah, I know we touched on this a little bit earlier. I was just saying things that are the favorites, like gluten-free stuffing, mashed potatoes, making them dairy-free with almond milk or dairy-free butter or ghee. It tastes delicious. It's not that much different than your classic mashed potatoes. Pumpkin pie is another really easy dish that you can bring to holidays and very easily made gluten dairy-free.
How do you do that? Okay, I'm going to say, Australians, we're not big. We don't do pies. We do meat pies, but not like the pie that you're thinking. So, when I first moved here into the US, I was like, oh my gosh, we've got the cherry pie, we've got the apple pie, we've got this pie, we've got the pumpkin pie. So pies for us are a little bit foreign. So I'm curious. I personally, and I'm gonna lay it out to everyone. I'm gonna be completely open and honest. I've never made a pie in my life.
Well, we do in New Orleans have meat pies as well, but not something we would typically bring to a holiday dinner. Pumpkin pie, pecan pie, all of those different pies. There's lots of varieties and different ways you can make them. We personally like to use Simple Mills. They have a cracker that is like a cinnamon cracker that you can crush up and use for the crust. So that's one way you can do it. Or you can even just get a gluten-free, dairy-free crust. They're available. So you just sometimes aren't even aware they're out there. Just doing a little research at your grocery store, you might be able to find one that's already ready and made for you so that you don't have to really prepare all of the pie from scratch.
Well, I mean, that sounds a little bit less overwhelming for me now. And I might actually try to step out of my comfort zone and make a pie. Now, to be honest, a pumpkin pie. I've actually never even tasted a pumpkin pie. I know I've been here almost 10 years. Can you believe that? I've never tasted a pumpkin pie. So it might be just something that goes on my holiday menu this year. I can feel some tension from the listeners thinking, look, this sounds great. I'm going to try my hardest. But what happens if your kid just goes off and eats something that has gluten and dairy at the event? These accidents happen. I think the first thing, and I just want to say to everyone before we dive in what they can do, is that as a parent that you're implementing these changes for your child, just brush it off. Accidents are going to happen. It is okay. And, when you look back, accidents here and there are not going to be the be all and end all. So, Andrea, what sort of steps can parents take to minimize any exacerbation of symptoms or discomfort in the gut when their child does accidentally or non-accidentally eat something with these things in it, and to get them back on track quickly?
Yes, I'll be the first to say it's happened to me. And this journey, like you say, it can very much be a roller coaster. You do all of this planning and all of this hard work to prepare, and then they sneak a cookie or they can't resist the treats or the foods at the party. And you know what? Just don't panic. Give yourself as much grace as you need to, because it happens to all of us.
All of
No
us.
matter how prepared you are, it's possible it's going to happen. So, things that you can do if this happens. Number one, we just want to make sure that we're drinking lots and lots of water. And if you really want to boost that up, squeeze some lemon in there to get the digestive juices flowing. That can be super helpful. And then even taking digestive enzymes like NutriThrive or Wheat Rescue, that can be helpful in breaking down some of those gluten proteins. It's just sometimes it can cause some discomfort in the gut as well, just those stomach issues or digestive issues. So making sure that we get plenty of rest. But the most important thing that I want to say about this is if this happens, try not to make a big deal about it, because we can feel so just upset, angry. I know I used to be like, gosh, we did all this planning. Why did you eat that? It can be so tough. We really want to use it as a teachable moment, because if our kids are having that gluten donut or whatever the treats are, the likelihood of them having some residual symptoms like stomach aches or behavioral issues is probably going to happen. And I think if you just connect it and have a conversation with them about how that food is making their body feel, really tie it to that, and how when we eat better, we feel better. It's one of those things that it can be hard and stressful when it happens, but we need to keep arming our kids with the knowledge that when we eat better, we feel better. And there's a reason why we feel this way when we eat these certain foods.
When we eat better, we feel better. I love that. And I think that, having that as a mantra for sure can really help you through those moments and also help them understand that connection. I want to say that if they're in the middle of a meltdown after they've eaten that gluten-filled donut, don't talk to them then about that connection, because they're going to be like, care. The best time is when they've obviously calmed down and they're in a much more stable mood. Talking about that connection is really, really super important. Andrea, this has been a great episode. I just want to thank you so much for joining us. Your advice is always incredibly valuable, and I know so many families will just feel that more bit of confidence handling holiday gatherings and meals with all of these strategies, because they're so practical. That's the reason I love having you on here, because the strategies that you give are just easy to implement. I'm going to go off and make a gluten-free pumpkin pie now. So thank you.
Yes,
Staying on top of gluten and dairy-free diets during the holidays can feel overwhelming. I get it. Andrea gets it. But I think, Andrea, with your tips today, it's totally clear that it's not only doable, but it can also be enjoyable. So I just want to thank you very, very much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Listeners, if you found today's episode helpful, we would love for you to share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And if you have a moment, please leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also really spreads the awareness and support within our amazing ADHD community. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at adhdthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.